The highway stretches endlessly into the night, a ribbon of asphalt swallowed by darkness. The only light comes from headlights cutting through fog, illuminating shadows that seem to move on their own. Out here, far from towns and warmth, every mile feels alive, and some travelers never make it home. Tonight, one trucker's journey takes us into the unknown, where the line between reality and nightmare disappears. Before we hit the road, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell, because every mile we drive tonight is a journey into fear. Let's begin, if you dare. Rain fell in relentless sheets, bouncing off the metal roof of Mike's rig with a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The headlights of his 18-wheeler cut through the thick darkness, illuminating the endless ribbon of asphalt ahead, streaked with puddles reflecting neon signs that no longer shone. The highway was empty, desolate even for the late-night freight schedule Mike usually favored. The only sounds were the rhythmic hum of the tires on wet pavement, the occasional squawk of a distressed crow somewhere in the distance, and the muted static of a CB radio that rarely carried anything beyond complaints from other drivers. Mike leaned back in his seat, the cab's heater doing little to chase away the chill that crept into his bones. He had driven this route dozens of times. Miles of empty desert stretched on either side, dotted sparsely with abandoned rest stops and shuttered motels. Somewhere in the far distance, lightning forked across the sky, illuminating jagged cliffs and the skeletal outlines of trees. The storm had come fast, and he had been lucky, or unlucky enough, to be caught in it mid-route. It was then, at the edge of his vision, that he saw her. A lone figure stood by the roadside, soaked to the bone, her long hair plastered against her face. She wore a tattered coat that seemed out of place for this century, clinging to her like a second skin. Mike squinted through the rain-streaked windshield. At first, he thought she was hallucinating. Fatigue could do that. But even from a distance, she waved a hand weakly, as if asking for help. Against his better judgment, he slowed the rig to a stop. The wind howled, gusting through the open window, and the figure did not hesitate. She stepped into the lane, her bare feet slipping in the puddles, then climbed into the cab without a word. Mike's heart thumped hard. Something about her felt wrong. She sat quietly, staring straight ahead, her eyes dark pools reflecting the dashboard lights. Mike cleared his throat, unsure if he should speak. "You need a ride somewhere?" No response. Initial suspense. A silent passenger. The minutes dragged on, the rain intensified, hammering the truck like a relentless drumbeat. The radio crackled and hissed. Then faintly a voice whispered through the static, "Don't look back." Mike froze. He glanced at the rearview mirror. The woman's reflection was there, but her eyes seemed impossibly wide, almost unblinking. He shook his head and tried to laugh it off. Maybe he'd been staring too long. Maybe the storm was playing tricks on his mind. He adjusted the mirrors and glanced at her again. She had not moved, not a twitch, not a blink. Her hands rested limply on her lap, but there was tension in the curve of her shoulders, a stillness that seemed unnatural. Mike's instincts screamed at him. He should stop. He should tell her to get out. But he also felt an odd magnetic pull, a compulsion to drive on, as though the truck had its own will now, directing him towards some destination he didn't want to reach. Hours passed, or was it minutes? The rain never let up. Conversation was impossible. Her silence pressed on him like a physical weight. Occasionally, He thought he heard faint sobbing from the passenger seat, but every time he turned to ask, the cab was empty. The GPS began to glitch. Familiar landmarks appeared out of order, roads twisting impossibly in loops. Mike blinked hard. He knew these roads. He had memorized every curve, every mile marker. Yet somehow, he had entered a stretch of highway that should not exist. Escalation, the loop that never ends. Mike's panic began to rise. He checked the seat again, still empty. His reflection stared back from the wet mirror, pale and wide-eyed. The whispering continued, growing louder, more urgent. "Don't look back! Don't look back!" Lightning flashed, illuminating the desert in stark, unnatural clarity. There she was, standing in the middle of the highway, just ahead. Her coat fluttered in the wind like a living shadow, and her face was illuminated by the headlights, revealing hollow cheeks, dark, endless eyes, and a smile that stretched too wide to be human. Mike slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded on the slick pavement, tires screeching, as he tried to avoid hitting her. But when he looked again, she had vanished. The mirrors fogged over. His hands gripped the wheel so tightly his knuckles cracked. The GPS recalculated, a route that looped him endlessly back to the same spot. No matter which exit he took, which turn he made, the highway fed him back into her path. He tried honking, flashing lights, even yelling, but the storm swallowed every sound. The truck had become a cage, a vessel hurtling through time and space in a loop that seemed impossible. The woman's figure appeared and disappeared like a ghost, teasing him, laughing silently with eyes that promised terror. Mike's radio erupted with static, forming words he could barely understand. Forever. Never leave. Ride with us. He realized with growing horror that he had not driven past other vehicles for hours, days perhaps. No trucks, no cars, not even a road sign that made sense. The world outside had warped into a purgatory of asphalt and rain, and he was trapped inside it, alongside a passenger who was both everywhere and nowhere. Climax, the shocking reveal. Finally, in a burst of courage or desperation, Mike pulled the truck to a stop at a shadowy rest area. The cab fell silent except for the rain, which now seemed to pound with a rhythm matching his heartbeat. He reached to grab the passenger door handle. Empty. The seat was completely dry. No footprints on the floor, no sign she had ever been there. His stomach turned cold. Panic flooded him. Had he imagined her? The whispers? The GPS loops? Then, in the rearview mirror, he saw her, standing behind the truck, eyes glowing faintly red in the dark. Her smile split her face unnaturally wide. She raised a hand, beckoning him. Mike's mind went numb. The radio crackled one last time, a voice now unmistakably hers. "You'll never leave, and I'll always ride with you." Mike's hands shook violently as he tried to start the truck. The engine roared but refused to move. Every gear, every pedal was dead. He pounded the steering wheel, screamed, but the woman's reflection was in every mirror, surrounding him from all angles. Then, silence. When the morning sun finally bled across the horizon, Mike's rig was found parked neatly at the side of the highway, cab doors locked. He was gone. No trace remained, except for faint wet footprints in the truck, leading from the passenger seat, straight into nothing. Truckers passing that highway swear they sometimes see her, alone on the roadside. Some report a strange compulsion to stop, to offer a ride, and the ones who do never return. Aftermath. The lingering fear. Years later, Stories of the highway hitchhiker circulate among truckers, like a warning whispered over CB radios. Experienced drivers, hardened by decades on the road, speak in hushed tones of a figure who is never truly seen, yet always present. Some say she rides only with those who are alone, vulnerable, willing to notice the shadow at the edge of vision. Others say she collects secrets, memories, and lives, forever trapped in a spectral loop of rain and asphalt. No one knows why she appears or what she wants. But one thing is certain: if you see her, stop and offer a ride. She may already be in your cab. And by the time you realize she's gone, it's too late. The night swallows the highway once more, leaving only silence and the echo of tires on wet asphalt. Some roads are meant to be avoided, and some passengers are never truly gone. If you thought this story ended here, think again. The next trucker might be driving the same road, seeing the same shadow, hearing the same whispers. Stay alert and remember, not every ride ends in daylight.